Guys and girls need to remember the fact that Frankie is with me. She keeps getting a lot of message requests and friends requests. She's not going to accept, especially tramps like yous. And if you want to keep your kneecaps, I suggest you stop sending her them. She's with the number one psycho.
Ambulance service, is the patient breathing?
Yeah, she's breathing.
Is she conscious?
Yeah. She's a bit of both, really. Basically, it's my partner's daughter. It's my little girl as well. I brought her up. We've got all three children here playing, and I was in the kitchen making a coffee, and they've been in the living room, and I heard a bang. So I came out, and the little lad stood there, and the little girl's on the floor, and she was crying, and then she stopped crying, and then she was sick, and now she's just a little bit floppy, to be honest with you.
But do you know what the bang was?
No, I don't know I don't know if she's fallen off of the sofa, or I don't know. Just the three of them playing with us. And
right.
he just said start, and when I walked in, she was laid on the floor. Shush, darling.
So you heard a bang, the patient was on the floor.
I've heard a bang, yeah. I came in, and the little lad was saying star, which is the little girl.
Yeah.
So I've shouted to mummy to sit up, star. So I sat her up, and I started to rub her back because she was like breathing but like struggling.
Yeah.
So I was rubbing her back. She started to be sick. So I laid her on the floor,
yeah.
put her in like CPR position, started to run her back. She started to lose breath. So I performed CPR on her.
So you've done CPR on her?
Yeah, I've done CPR. I've got her in the position, the recovery position now.
Star suffered devastating injuries and was subject to humiliating videos filmed by Savannah Brockhill and Frankie Smith. The toddler's family desperately called for help, but social workers said she was safe in the hands of the family. CCT and snapshot videos, an event that should have never happened. On September 22nd, 2020, 16-month-old toddler Star Hobson took her last breath. She had suffered utterly catastrophic injuries, including extensive damage to her abdominal cavity caused by either punching or kicks or stomps. But it was far from one event. Over the course of 2-month trial, which ultimately found Star's mom, Frankie Smith, 20 years old, guilty of causing or allowing the toddler's death, and her partner, Savannah Brockhill, 28, guilty of murder, it was heard the toddler had suffered so much more. During her short life, Star had suffered 2 fractures to her right leg caused by forcible twisting, which had been refractured and healed while she was at home. The Kenley, West Yorkshire, had a fracture to the back of her skull as well. Savannah Brockhill was found guilty at the Bradford Crown Court for the murder of this 16-month-old child. Then there were the videos. During the trial, the jury was shown a series of clips from a CCTV camera, which prosecutors showed Brockhill delivered a 21 blow to the star in a car over a period of nearly 3 hours. Some of the toddler were in the car seat. The footage came. I'm going to put this up here for you again. Hold on one second. Okay. The footage came from a camera at the recycling plant in Donchester, where Brockhill was working as a security guard, and it was filmed about 8 hours before Starr's death. The footage appeared to show Brockhill punching and slapping Starr with what prosecutor Alistair MacDonald QC described as with considerable force. And at one point, the youngster fell out of the vehicle, and she was grabbed by the throat and put back in the vehicle. Let me take this down. I'm not going to show the full CCTV. This is Frankie Smith, who had been convicted at the same courthouse for causing or allowing the death of her 16-month-old daughter. Another video showed Starr falling out of a plastic chair and hitting the floor. They videoed a lot. Both the couple videoed a lot of things. Like I said, the mobile phone footage had been slowed down with music added, plus a caption which said, "In this moment, she realizes she has messed up." That's what they put in there about the baby. In this moment, she realizes she has messed up. Like the baby was thinking that, like a thinking caption to the music that they added to it. There was also one that showed Starr being forced to stand and stare at a wall, filmed by her mother. The court watched as 16-month-old Starr screamed and cried as she faced the wall. The different clips filmed and on both defendants' phones showed Starr being so exhausted that she fell forward and slept in a bowl of food. Mr. McDonald told the jury that youngster was clearly exhausted but treated completely without love. But despite all of this, despite pleas for help from those who knew and loved Starr, all the pleas went unheard. Chilling audio had been released on the day of Starr's death when Brockhill, this is Brockhill, called 999. In America, we have 911. In the UK, they have 999. Videos and pictures shown to the jury, Starr was bruised to her face, eye, and ear, while Mr. McDonald described the 15-minute window in which Google searches were made in relation to a child being in shock before Smith and Brockhill made a call to the Yorkshire police. In the harrowing 11-minute call, Brookshire lies to the operator that she said she was making coffee in the kitchen and she heard a bang. Before trying to pin the blame on the Tot's death on another toddler, Brockhill said, "I came out and the little lad standing there and looking at the little girl on the floor and she was crying, and then she was sick. So when she came out, she was trying to blame the little boy that was crying because she fell. Uh, Now she's just gone a little bit floppy, to be honest with you. That's what she told 999. The cruel stepmother told the call handler she didn't know if Star's injuries happened after falling from the sofa or if they came from playing with the other babies. Oh, yeah. I'm sure that happened. This is Star. She said, I came in and the little lad was saying Star. So I obviously shouted her mom and said, sit up, Star. When I sat her up and she started to rub her back because she was like breathing, but like struggling. She started to be sick. So I laid her on the floor. This is how she described it. Star's efforts at breathing were described by medics as minimal, while her complexion was a waxy gray when they found her almost lifeless body. Jurors were told she vomited large amounts of brown fluid in an ambulance prior to being rushed to the hospital and died soon after. The search history on Smith's phone revealed that she had searched for how long, searched for how to bring a baby out of shock and shock in babies at 3:34 p.m. on that day. Paramedics arrived at the family's home in Bradford at 4:04, and Star was pronounced dead in hospital shortly after 5. In case y'all remember at the beginning, I want to play the 911 video again for you because she calls herself a number one psycho. And that's important. As soon as I get my mouse to move correctly, hold on, please.
My little girl as well, I brought her up. We've got all 3 children.
Guys and girls need to remember the fact that Frankie is with me. She keeps getting a lot of message requests and friends requests. She's not going to accept, especially tramps like yous. And if you want to keep your kneecaps, I suggest you stop sending her them. She's with the number one psycho.
Now that part on the video is Savannah Brockhill. She is telling about her obsession of Frankie. Because the people that were coming after Frankie were not just other women, but it was other men too. And how does this affect the baby? Well, the baby was coming and taking a lot of Frankie's time as well. So this is another person in the way of her girlfriend. And she wanted possession of that. And if she couldn't have possession of it, she was going to get rid of it somehow. So she was always referred to herself as the number one psycho. And Frankie is a struggling teen mom. I know it sounds bad. Yes, from Savannah Brockhill, yes, but when it comes to Frankie, we're going to go into more of each of them along the way, but there's a big difference. She's not innocent by any means. Frankie is not innocent, but there's a big difference between the two of them um, that I'll get into later. So let's just play them. Playing the 911 call again. She just acts like she doesn't know nothing, like the kid just fell over. But they did a 30-minute search easy on the internet before they ever called for help.
Under the service, is the patient breathing?
Yeah, she's breathing.
Is she conscious?
Yeah. She's a bit of both, really. Basically, it's my partner's daughter. Is my little girl as well. I brought her up. We've got all three children here playing, and was in the kitchen making a coffee, and they've been in the living room, and I heard a bang. So I came out, and the little lad stood there, and the little girl's on the floor, and she was crying, and then she stopped crying, and then she was sick, and now she's just a little bit floppy, to be honest with you.
And what, do you know what the bang was?
No, I don't know. I don't know if she's fallen off of the sofa, or I don't know. Just there's three of them playing with us. And
Right.
he just said start, and when I walked in, she was laid on the floor. Hush, darling.
Hush, darling.
So you heard a bang?
This baby's in a lot of pain, y'all. A lot of pain. Now this right here is just a couple picture, just them taking a picture, and it looks so innocent. But what they did to this baby was not innocent at all. In her own words, pub bouncer Savannah Brockhill described herself as the number one psycho who claimed to have dropped men and women with her punches. Um, and this is very important. Um, she's a one-time mixed martial arts fighter, security guard, and a dog handler. She had previously threatened to put love rivals in a wheelchair by breaking their kneecaps. And this is not an all talk kind of person. She's done things to people, not just talked about it. And the defendant, she's a defendant. She's a former amateur boxer. Appeared to be bragging when she told the jury about her punching power. The court heard she was obviously jealous, physically powerful, violent, and controlling. During her trial, she was reprimanded by the judge for gesturing while a barrister outlined her awful crime. She's not the kind of person who just sits there and listens to her. She wants you to know she's tough on all levels. On a video link from custody, arrogant Brockhill could be seen laughing. Is she something to watch? Shaking her head repeatedly, yawning, grinning, and chatting up to someone off camera. At one point, she appeared to be playing with a ball, and when playing with a surgical glove she had inflated. Um, there's a lot of videos of weird things that she does or whoever she's talking to. During Brockhill's relationship with 20-year-old Smith, she used social media to intimidate love rivals. In one menacing post on Snapchat, she had threatened to cripple anyone who looked at the young lover in the wrong way. And that's what y'all heard before the 911 call. In May of 2020, she warned guys and girls to remember the fact that Frankie is with me. She keeps getting lots of messages and friends requests, and she's not going to accept them, especially tramps like you. If you want to keep your kneecaps, I would suggest you stop sending them to her. And that's what was on the call before the 911, sending out her message so that, you know. Okay. A chilling caption beneath the video says, I'm the number one psycho when it comes to my girlfriend and wouldn't mind putting someone in a chair for the rest of their life if they as much as look at her wrongly. Keep safe and don't message my girlfriend. Um, this is a constant thing with her. The trial heard Brockhill had been subject. I'm sorry. The trial heard Brockhill had subjected Smith to beatings, and as their relationship soured, her violent rages were directed at her lover's defenseless little girl. So even though you hear her talk big about everybody else stay away from her, she was stay away from her, Frankie. She was also quite paranoid about people looking at Frankie or thinking they were looking at her, or also um, thinking Frankie was allowing them to look at her. She couldn't really talk to anybody or do anything that would give the impression. And if she did, she would put a whooping on Frankie. And when their relationship kind of started going sour by her demeanor and hitting Frankie and just her whole way of acting with Frankie, which is what I thought was interesting because um, when she thought she couldn't take that, she made promises. Oh, I'm sorry, I won't do that to you anymore. But yet it kept continuing. And then when the relationship started to go away, she started to take it out on the baby instead. I guess she thought maybe if I stop beating up on her, she'll stay. And if she took more time with the child, she'll stay also. But the kind of time she took up with the child was not the kind of staying you want to. And Frankie's not innocent. Don't. She knew she was beating on this child, so don't think she's innocent. She's immature, but she's not innocent. We're gonna cover all that. Um, Meanwhile, Smith, described as a lazy mum, that's how they say mom in England, more interested in partying than her daughter, took part in the cruel pranks on Star and failed to protect her from a woman she knew was a bully prone to sudden and violent rages. Smith, who was 20, fell pregnant with got pregnant with Star when she was 17 years old. The child was born in May 2019, and soon after, Smith's relationship with Star father, Jordan Hobson, ended when he returned to university. The task of raising the child tended to fall on the family members, as Smith, whose own home life had reportedly been turbulent, uh, took more interest in socializing than raising a child. Frankie Smith's father, Andrew Smith, died in an overdose in June, the very year of this, at the age of 50, and apparently overwhelmed by the death of his granddaughter. Even Smith Barrister Zephyr Ali QC admitted to Bradford County Court she was not a normal mother with an IQ of 70. And that's in the bottom 2% of the population. Both her mother and sister described her as immature, someone who was still playing with dolls at age 16 and who had left school at the age of 10. Now we're talking about Frankie here. Frankie's the one in the picture on your, if you're looking at the screen, she's on your left. Smith cried uncontrollably in the docks as she was cleared of the murder, but convicted of causing and allowing the toddler's death. So there were a lot of people who tried to prevent this in Frankie Smith's family. Smith family and friends had growing fears about bruising they saw in Little Star in the months before she died. A series of complaints were made to social services, but in each case, Brockhill and Smith managed to convince social workers that marks on Star were accidental, or the compliments were made, or the complaints were made maliciously by people who didn't like their relationship. And so I think that played really well for them. When everything else failed, they started to say how people didn't like them because they were two girls in a relationship. One of those who made a complaint was 18-year-old babysitter Holly Jones. She went to social services with concerns about bruising she's seen in pictures of Star, and domestic violence by both Smith and Brockhill. I mean, if you're seeing this, you can't pass this up. This is not a fall off a table. Holly was a close friend of Smith's and told the Mirror that's like the Mirror is like the Sun or Inquiring Minds Want to Know kind of thing. In the UK, it's called the Sun. She said she was worried by the way Star changed after Frankie met Savannah. And she said she just changed. Frankie would leave her baby in the walker on the carpet all day. She was still giving her milk at 10 months old. She said, I telephoned social services and I was with Frankie and Star when social services rang to tell her they were coming to see her in an hour. I thought it was a bit stupid, as it was like ringing a criminal and telling them you're going to be coming around to arrest them in an hour. That's the babysitter. And Frankie spent the whole hour cleaning and tidying up the house. We were at her mom's house, Yvonne, and getting Star all nicely sorted, covering up the bruises. I don't know why you'd be covering up the bruises if you want the social worker to see them. Okay. In the end, it was two police officers that arrived, not social workers. And I was holding Star and they spoke to Frankie. And I think social services tried to see Frankie again, but she was not at home. I later got a call from social services telling me they are closing the case because Star is safe in the hands of her mother. And I'm happy that Star has got some justice, and really happy Savannah was found guilty of the murder, but social services should have done more. I think they should have done something, not necessarily more. Brockhill and Smith managed to convince social workers that marks on Star were accidental. Smith's great grandmother, Anita Smith, 70, also reported concerns about Star to social services in the months leading up to her death. On May 5th, she referred to her granddaughter after another relative told her Brockhill had been slam choking Star. And slam choking means uh, Brockhill was picking her up by her throat. She was palm gripping her by her throat and slamming her down. Together with her partner, David Fawcett, the great grandmother looked after Star for 11 weeks when Frankie couldn't cope. But Smith managed to persuade them. Her grandmother's report said malicious because she was in the same sex with the gypsy. That's what they would call Brockhill. Uh, if you didn't come from a good family in the UK, or if you were a street like person, a lower class person, they would call you a gypsy. She then banned her grandmother from seeing Star, and social services closed the case without informing Anita, the grandmother. In June, Alicia Zephyr, Smith's sister and Star's aunt, sent photographs of bruises to the police and spoke to the officers. Now, on June 21st, Star's student father, Jordan Hobson, also made a referral to the social services, and he has sent a photo of his daughter with a bruised face. Police again visited the home, and again saw the markings on the baby's head. This was the third referral. I mean, how many referrals do you need before you and see stuff like this before you say, "Hey, something's wrong"? Well, police, along with social service representatives, took Frankie and Star to the Royal Infirmary that day. As medical attention, that's not anything special. But she was seen by a doctor and only 4 months experience in child safely, who saw the injuries in isolation and accepted the excuses that the toddler had bumped into a coffee table knob and hurt her leg playing with a puppy. Wow. On June 23rd, Rachel Whiteley, a friend of Smith's mother, made a social services referral after observing the behavior at the family barbecue. But 6 days later, social services closed the case again. I think the leader of the Bradford County also said that he let Star down. On September 2nd, Frank Smith, Star's paternal grandfather, made social services referral after seeing a video of bruises on Savannah's face. Social services visited Smith but were told she was in Scotland. On an unannounced visit the next day, when Smith was present with Brockhill, social workers observed the flat was clean, tidy, and warm. They found the infant's bruises on the Star's cheek and bruises to her right arm. It isn't like people aren't seeing injuries on here. They are seeing the injuries and they're reporting it. And social workers are seeing the injuries as well. And I'm sure they're writing it down. But here we go. They found a faint bruise on Star's cheek and a bruise on her right shin. Star was unsteady on her feet and walked into a sofa, while social services were present. Wow. So Smith said Star had fallen down the stairs. Social services closed the case again on September 15th. After the social service worker concluded the referral was malicious. See, they think everybody's just picking on these two girls. That's really what they're thinking. They're not looking after the child at all. And although the final referral was closed on September 15th, social services were still in contact with Smith right up until the day of Star's death. Smith was due to meet the social worker on September 22nd, the day Star was murdered, but the meeting was put off for 3 days. Well, I don't think she's going to make it. I mean, that sounds cruel. But they had a whole lot of times to do something. The social worker sent a text to Smith to say, "Thanks for letting me know. We will do Friday at 10:30 a.m." Wow. On Wednesday, this a life sentence. On Wednesday, Brockhill was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 25 years. Smith, the birth mother, has been given a sentence of 8 years in prison. Judy Miss Justice Lambert revisited the devastating facts of the attack on Star, during which she suffered a laceration to a vein carrying blood back into the heart. The tot lost 50% of her blood, having been kicked or punched, and having injuries were likened to those would suffer in a car crash. That's how bad the beatings were that she got. It looked like she was in a car crash. The fatal assault was not an isolated event. Justice Lambert added, she said her short life was marked by neglect, cruelty, and injury. She was murdered by you, Savannah Brockhill, Frankie Smith. It was your role as her mother to protect Star from harm. You have been convicted by this jail for failing to protect her. A victim impact statement from Anita Smith, Star's great-grandmother, was read to the court, during which she described her favorite memories of the toddler. She described how Star's smile would light up a room and added that she developed a cheeky personality. Miss Smith's statement described how she would watch Star dancing while listening to Ollie Murs or David Fawcett. Miss Smith's partner would play guitar. She said, "I will treasure those memories of content, happy child forever. We never expected to have her for 10 weeks. And now I will look back on that time as the happiest days of my life." And that Star was let down. This is David Fawcett, the great-grandfather of Star Hobson and the grandfather of Frankie Smith, speaking to the media outside the Bradford Crown Court. He was asked, "How would you describe Brockhill?" As he stood there, not really knowing what to say, he said one sentence: just pure evil. In a devastating statement, he said to me, she was just pure evil. I just can't believe she could do something like that to a baby girl. We were just a quiet, lovely family and ascended from the bowels of hell. And she ascended from the bowels of hell and just completely devastated and wrecked our family. Such a shocking case rises wider beyond Brockhill, though. Come only days after Emma Tustin was sentenced for the murder of little Arthur Hughes. You can read more about that little boy who stood no chance here. Star's death was a situation Mr. Fawcett had feared, describing how they didn't want another baby P on their hands, referring to 17-month-old Peter Conley, whose harrowing death gripped the nation in 2007. The great granddad said when social services went to visit them, they said everything was fine and it was malicious gossip and left it at that. We were shocked because we thought they would at least come speak to us. If it was just one referral, maybe I would understand it, but five, I think it's highly unacceptable. We told the woman over the phone that she didn't want another baby P on her hands. But the woman on the phone asked us if we meant what we meant by that, and it was shocking. Baby P died from abuse, and we just didn't want another baby P. That's shocking. She she don't even know who they're talking about. Not at all. Hold on, let me get a drink. So today I'm going to end with this, and I'll be back tomorrow to continue this story. But I want to play a recap for you of this, and I will be back tomorrow with part two, and there'll probably be a part three because we're going to go into um, the abuse and a little more into the analytics of what was more about the girls and how they came.
Anyways, your
Wait,
typical toddler. 16-month-old.
more about more in depth to the case, but I'm gonna play this review right here for you. Um, in case some of you came in late. That way you'll be caught up.
Star Hobson was in many ways your typical toddler. Happy, boisterous, bubbly, and was showered with affection by anyone who knew her. The thing about Star, though, was she wasn't born into a relatively small family or to an extended family who didn't have much to do with her. Believe it or not, Star Hobson's great-grandparents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and friends on both her mother and father's side of the family had relationships with her. Her mother, Frankie Smith, grew up in a similar environment to that of her daughter. She lived in Bradford, had relationships with both close and extended family, who together provided a support network as she grew through her childhood. But to put this story into perspective, if we rewind only back to 2018, reports from family members recall Frankie still playing with dolls, aged 16, favouring lifelike models that she would wrap up when it got cold. So for then only 1 year later to give birth to a child, it was going to be a cause for concern. Before we move forward with the video, I just want to let everyone know that viewer discretion is advised, as we will be talking in depth about child abuse. On the 21st of May 2019, then 17-year-old Frankie Smith and her boyfriend Jordan Hobson gave birth to a beautiful girl, Star. Immediately, both sides of the family welcomed all into their homes with open arms, excited to add a new member to their family. It's been said that for the first 6 months of her life, Frankie had been close to Star as any mother would. But without any in-depth information into those 6 months, we can only assume they had a loving relationship. When November crept up, however, everything was about to change. You see, Frankie and Jordan split up as Jordan was heading off to study criminology at Sunderland University. This left the now 18-year-old Frankie with a huge responsibility on her shoulders, but she crumbled under the pressure, giving in to her immature state of mind. She went out drinking, partying as any single 18-year-old would. That would be okay hadn't she had a small child being fobbed off to other family members and friends. She was in and out of mother duties as the weeks progressed. One of those who took on regular babysitting duties was Holly Jones, a friend of Frankie's. She would watch little Star whilst Frankie was out drinking at places like the Sun Hotel in Bradford, a place in where she met what family described as the devil. Frankie was normal until she met her. She came from the bowels of hell. Anyone you ask said the same thing. Frankie changed when she met Savannah Brockhill. Savannah Brockhill was a dog handler, amateur boxer, and qualified door staff. She once had dreams of being an Olympic fighter, but injury took that opportunity away. Either way, in the weeks after Frankie and Jordan broke up, Frankie had started to flirt with Savannah, who was working the doors at the Sun Hotel in Bradford. The two were said to have hit it off instantly. But oddly, in the weeks going from November of 2019 until January of 2020, the two were said to have been in an on-off relationship. 1 minute they broke up, the next they were back together. This had stemmed from jealousy on Savannah's part, jealous that Frankie attracted both male and female attention on nights out. The red flags had shown early as Savannah showed signs of aggression and obsession. To get a real feel of how bad this obsession was though, watch Savannah here in May of 2020, making threats to people after she claimed Frankie was hers.
Guys and girls need to remember the fact that Frankie is with me. She keeps getting a lot of message requests and friends requests she's not going to accept, especially tramps like yous. And if you want to keep your kneecaps, I suggest you stop sending her them. She's with the #1 psycho.
Going back to November of 2019 though, and babysitter Holly Jones remembered how obsessed Savannah was. She recalled her wanting to change Star's last name to hers, going on to say that she wasn't Jordan's baby anymore, she was hers. Again, odd behaviour for someone who had only known Frankie and Star for a couple of weeks at this point. Holly also said in November she started to notice Star not being her usual bubbly self, becoming more quiet and reserved. Frankie by this point had been more focused on her own personal life than looking after her daughter. She became a neglectful mother, feeding Star baby formula for a 4-month-old child, even though she needed to be on the 8-month-old formula. That, on top of Star being left to her own devices to feed herself, tipped Holly over the edge, so she offered to intervene. She offered to have Star at her mother's home on the weekends at night to lend a hand. But as January started to come around, and with this regular routine in process, Holly said Star had started to come to her mother's in bruises. She had also by this point witnessed Savannah be violent towards Frankie and at times had seen Frankie with bruises and black eyes. So when she'd been in touch with an advisor for her own personal issues as an adult, they told her to contact social services to pass the concern on to them so they could investigate.
I'm gonna close that down right there. Thank you all for coming. I will be back tomorrow with a part 2 and go further in depth with the psychoanalysis and the language analysis for how this was taken out. So I will be back to see y'all tomorrow, and let's continue this and dive deeper into how this happened. Have a great day.